In our gospel reading for today, Jesus answers one of the most basic of human questions. What is the purpose of all of this suffering in the world? These past couple of years, we have seen the terrible devastation caused by COVID. And you see the destruction and death caused by the wildfires in California and the massive tornado in Kentucky. And you tend to ask sometimes, why? You see tragedy in people's lives and even the experience of loss and suffering in your own life. And you want to ask, why? In our gospel reading for today, Jesus and his disciples are passing by a man born blind. And in Jesus' day, that would have been an even worse tragedy than today. Not only can't he see, but there is no social security to help. There is no place like Goodwill to work at. There is just destitute poverty and begging. So the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned that this man was born blind? Was it himself or his parents that sinned? It was understood in those days that any calamity that happened to a person was somehow the result of someone's sin. But Jesus directly confronts that understanding. Jesus says neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. In the face of suffering and tragedy, we immediately want to ask the question, why? And we want to know how much God is to blame. Does God create suffering? Or does God just allow suffering? And yet, these questions are the wrong questions to ask. Suffering and tragedy are built into this world. The tectonic plates of the earth have to shift, and this will produce earthquakes and tsunamis. There are viruses and illnesses in the world, and so at some point you are likely to get the flu or even COVID. Or you may get some illness like cancer. I could die of a massive heart attack or have a serious stroke tomorrow. These things are not your fault because you somehow deserve it. Just as Jesus says of the man born blind, neither this man nor his parents sinned. This is the nature of this life. Tragedy and suffering are built into this life. No one gets through this life without it. Some seem to get less, others seem to get more, but you don't really know the whole story. You don't really know what others have had to bear. So, since suffering and tragedy are a given part in this world and in this life, the question to ask is not, why did this happen? Or, does God pick who gets to suffer? As Jesus tells us, the question to ask is this: how are God's works going to be revealed through this? How are God's works going to be revealed through this? Now that is a whole different kind of question. And it changes your whole attitude around it. Instead of looking for someone to blame, which we usually do, instead of just pitying people or feeling sorry for them or for yourself, Jesus prompts you to look deeper into the question. Jesus prompts you to look deeper into the suffering. What can you learn from this suffering? What can you learn from this loss? What can the world learn from this loss? Well, to start with, we've already answered one question. Suffering is an essential part of life. You won't get around it. So it is best to face it and to ask God to help you to find a way through it. A second answer that we can learn from tragedy might be there will always be human error. Any system you build can and will fail. From nuclear power plants to natural gas lines to the social institutions that we create to the governments or the people that we support. They often break down due to human greed and arrogance. Wars often begin because one group of people wants to control the other group of people. They want to take what the other one has, usually land or power. A third, more personal answer might be each of us must experience suffering so that we can relate to the other. When you are doing fine and well, when everything in your life is going perfect, you have no reason to need anyone else. And no one else has any reason to need you or care about your life. But when you or someone you know is in need, you let your guard down. You are more likely to be willing to accept the kind words and actions of the people around you. And when you see someone in need, you can relate to them. You remember what it is like to experience heartbreak and loss. You remember what it is like to lose a loved one or even a beloved pet. And your heart reaches out. The love and caring in you reaches across into that other person's life. Because of suffering, you connect in a way that you would not have before. The tragedies in life might also cause a person to feel like an outcast. They might become overwhelmed with sorrow or anger or deeply depressed. That is true. And those are the darkest times in life. But it is also true that in the depths of darkness, the smallest of candles is a bright light. God has put you into the lives of other people who are going through tragedy. God has put you into the lives of people who are feeling lost or outcast. And you bring the light. You bring the hope. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. That I am is the very presence of the eternal God. What you bring into people's lives is the very presence of the eternal God. You may not realize it, but your smile, your way of dealing with life, your way of dealing with heartbreak or loss or any of the setbacks of life, your way of dealing with those with the help and presence of God. The people around you see that. They see how you do not put people down. Or, if you do, you're sorry for it. They see how you don't consider yourself above anyone else. They see in you the presence of love. They see in you the presence of hope. They see in you generosity and compassion. They see in you a unique and trusting connection with God. And that is the work of God in you. Through all that you have been through in this life, you have become the work of God, that all the world may see. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.